Now, some of the definition as propounded by this first generation of economics are what are to be explained below. The first one is that the first definition we need to consider here is the first generation we need to consider here is what? Is that economics is what? Economics is an inquiry into the nature and cause of wealth of nations. As in any inquiry, economic is what? Economics is an inquiry into the nature and what? And cause of the wealth of nations. Now, as provided by Adam Smith. Now, it means Adam Smith is one of the classical views, classical school of thought that provide one of the definitions, which says that economics as a subject is an inquiry into the nature and causes of what? Of wealth of nation. It means when you inquire into the nature and the cause of the wealth of a particular country or nations, then we talk about what? Economy. So economy is all about, according to Adam Smith, inquiry into the wealth, into the nature and cause of wealth of nations of the country. Now, of nations. Now, another school of thought, another economy that gave definition of what? Under the classical view is that of J.B. says. J.B. says. This says that the study of laws which governs wealth. Economics is what is said to be what? The study of what? Of laws which governs what? Which governs wealth. So when you study the law which governs wealth, they will talk about economics according to J.B. says. Right? The third economics that made definition under what? Under this classical view is that of what? Is that of G.S. Mill, who says that what? Economics is a body of knowledge which relates to what? To wealth. So what we are now saying in essence is that from this definition, we realize that most of this classical view, classical economics, they make definition in relation to the wealth of a nation. According to the Adam Smith, it says what? Economics is an inquiry into the nature and cause of wealth of nations. Why what? Why the study, or why J.B. says is the study of laws which governs wealth. That's according to J.B. says. Why economics is a body of knowledge which relates to wealth, according to what? To J.S. Smith. So it is all about wealth to this classical economics. Now, the second school of thought, the second generation of economics are what I make or propound definitions of what of economics are the neoclassical view. The neoclassical economics were immediate successor of the classical economists, who applied most of the approach and techniques in the latter with little modification in some cases. Now, it means this neoclassical view, the neoclassical school of thought of economics, they make amendment or little modification about what? On the definition as provided by by their predecessors. The classical view. So that's why we call them neoclassical view. Now, one of the definitions under this neoclassical view, is the one propounded by Alfred Marshall. Now, he says that economics is the study of mankind in ordinary business of life. Now, when you study mankind, it's the study of what? Of mankind in the ordinary business of what? In the ordinary business of life. Now, when you study mankind in the ordinary business of life, it examines that part of what? Of individual and social actions which is most closely connected with the attainment and with the use of what? Of material requisites of well-being. It means economics, according to Alfred Marshall, is the study of mankind in ordinary business of life. And when you study mankind in the ordinary business of life, it examines that part of individual and social actions. We'll talk about the individual and the social actions, which is most closely and connected. Social actions which is most closely and connected with the attainment and with the use of material requisites of well-being. That is what one of the definitions under this neoclassical view, who are the successor of the classical school of thought. Now, the third school of thought of economics that provided a definition that gave definition of economics is that of the scarcity definition. Now, this scarcity definition, this embraces the view of Lionel Robbins, Lord Lionel Robbins. Now, this is the most recognized propounder of definitions, or the most recognized professor that give working definition for economics, and I think his definition is mostly accepted as a definition of economics now in the present day. Now, this embraces the view of Lionel Robbins. Now, we are under the scarcity definition and his numerous followers. According to this, school of thought, the prime focus of economics is what? Is the problem of resources that are limited in the relation to human ones that are unlimited. Now, the focus of this of the definition as well by what Lionel Robbins, under the scarcity definition or scarcity school of thought, is that economics is what? Economics is a school of thought. I mean, the prime focus of economics under this is that is a school of thought. The prime focus of economics is the problem of resources that are limited in relation to what? To human wants that are what? That are unlimited. So now the definition brings about the relationship. It brings into focus the relationship between what? Between the limited resources. Limited what? Resources and the what? And the unlimited human wants. So what makes the definition of what? Of this scarcity definition to be unique is the what? Is the focus of this definition on the what? On the available resources in the nation and the what? And the what? Unlimited amount of what? Of human wants. Now, what is the relationship between the what? Between the resources in a country and the what? And the unlimited wants of what? Of human beings residing in that country. That's the premise of what? Of the definition of what? As propounded by what? By Lord Lionel Robbins under this what? Scarcity definition. Now the definition: economics is a science which studies human behavior. Economics is a science which studies what? Human what? Behavior. Human behavior as a relationship between what? Ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. So this is what? Propounded by what? Definition propounded by what? Lionel Robbins. He is just saying that economics is a science which what? Which studies what? Human behavior. So what economics is what is based on is what? Is study of behavior. And whose behavior? Behavior of what? Behavior of human being. And what is it about the behavior of human being? He studied behavior of human being as a relationship between what? Between the ends and the what? And the scarcity and the scarce means of what? Of that human being. Now what we are saying in essence is that economics is a what? Is a study we study human is a discipline we study what? Human behavior as a relationship between what? Between the ends and the what? And the scarce means. So when we say ends, what do we mean? Ends simply means what we use, what we want, our what? Our wants, our needs, our yearnings. You know, we have different yearnings, different needs. These are the ends, and they are very unlimited. Why scarce means simply means the resources that we use in what? In satisfying these are unlimited what? Unlimited ones. Now, the study of the behavior of the relationship between what? Between these ends and these scarce means, which have what? Alternative uses. Mean the scarce means have what? Alternative uses. So this definition is that definition that was that provided by what? Lord Lionel Robbins, and it is what is definition that is mostly acceptable and mostly used in the present day. Now, Lord Robbins' definition warrants further explanation. Now, the word ends refers to wants in terms of what? Goods and services required by man for survival. That's the ends. Why the word? The means. I mean the means refers to what? Productive resources, otherwise known as factors of what? Of production. These are land, labor, capital, which are used to produce goods and perform services, which people desire to satisfy their wants. So to make a good clarification of what? Of the definition of what? Of scarcity definition as provided by what? Lionel Robbins, we need to what? Give an explanation to the what? To the terms in there. I mean, the first one, which is the ends, while the second, which is what? The scarce means. And I have talked about the ends to be our wants, which are unlimited, while our scarce means is our what? Is our resources which are what? Which are used in what? Satisfying that end, and mostly they are what? They are the factors of production. So the relationship between these two terms, as it relates to the behavior of human being, is just what? Is what Lionel Robbins states as what? As the definition of economics. Why the fourth view, which is the working definition, according to Leo Atkinson remarks, economics are what? Are concerned with the behavior of people, and the complexities of people's behaviors cannot be what? Easily captured in a single definition. So the working definition, Richard Lipsey is one of the what? Propounder or the what? Advocate of what? Of this working definition, and there are other numerous professors that actually make what? Their landmark in what? In this working definition of what? Of economics. So when we say capitalism, capitalism simply means what? This is a system, an economic system. This is a system otherwise known as the what? As a free enterprise economy. We can also call it free enterprise economy, or we call it laissez-faire. It's characterized by the private ownership of all productive assets. All productive assets or what? Or resources. So what we are saying in essence is that any economic system in which there is a free, there is a private ownership of all productive resources. It means all the factors of production are privately owned in that economy. That kind of economy is said to be what? A capitalist in nature. It means when all the factors of production are what? When all the factors of production are owned by the what? When all the factors of production are owned by individuals in that country, then we'll talk about that country to be what? A capitalist economy. Then, what are the features of a capitalist economic system? The first one is that the decisions regarding production and distribution of goods and services are made by individuals and firms in their capacities and resource owners, producers, and consumers. Now, what we are saying is that regarding the production and distribution of goods and services, now, it is made by individuals and firms. Now, producing and what? Producing goods and services and distributing them are what? Are essentially the function of what? Of individuals and firms. It depends on the amount of money they are having, resources they are having at their disposal, that will determine what to produce and how to distribute them. So that's one of the features of what? Of a capitalist system. A capitalist system is that economic system in which individuals own what? Own and control the factors of production. That is first one. The second one is what? There is a freedom of choice. Based on what you are having, you can decide to buy anything, to decide anything. In an economy, you are free. You are not constrained as to what to consume or what to buy or what to produce. So in an economic system to what that guarantees a freedom of choice is what in relation to economy is what it serves to be what a capitalist economic system. The third one is that the productive resources as well as economic goods and services are allocated and distributed among various activities and users by what is known as price mechanism. So this is very important in a capitalist economic system. Price mechanism simply means what? The equilibrating mechanism, equilibrating forces of what? Forces of what? Of demand and supply, which what brings about price mechanisms, is what determines how goods and services are allocated and distributed in that organization, in that country. Now it means the forces of demand and supply, which is termed price mechanisms, is what determines what? How goods and services are allocated and distributed in that country. It means price mechanism is what is the sole distributor and allocator of what? Of the goods and services in that in that economy called capitalist economy. So this is a term that is very relevant under capitalist price mechanisms, which simply means that what? The equilibrating mechanism of demand and supply, which determines how goods and services are allocated and distributed in an economy. The fourth one is that the function of government is highly restricted. In a capitalist economic system, government function is not seen to be pronounced. They are what? They are on the low side. They make regulation fine, but most of the economic activities are carried out by by individuals. Individuals that own factors of production. So therefore, in a capitalist economic system, the function of government is what? Is highly restricted. The next one is that capitalist economies allow for efficient allocation of resources and economic growth. Because of what? Of forces of what? Of price mechanism as an allocator of what? Of goods and services in an economic system called capitalist economic system. Then there is efficient allocation of resources. There is no wastages. Because of what? Because you work for what you want, and you pay for what you want, and there is no room for what? Eating without working, and that's features of a capitalist. We state that what? It allows for efficient allocation of resources and economic growth. Now, countries that practice these economic systems, examples of these countries are what? Are US. One of them is US, United States of America. The other one is Canada. Right? The other one is Britain, France, Japan, and New Zealand. All these countries are countries that practice what? That practice capitalist economic system. Don't forget that under capitalist economies, what determines how goods and services are allocated and distributed are what we call the price mechanisms. Let's go to the next one. Socialism. This is second socialist economic system. This is second economic system in view. Now, under this socialist economic system, this is an economy this economy is one in which what? All productive resources are publicly owned, and all decisions about the allocation of resources are taken by the central government. In this kind of economic system, all the resources in that economy, they are publicly owned. What do we mean by publicly owned? It means government control all the resources in that economy. What to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. How resources are allocated are primary function of government. This is a sharp contrast to that of capitalism. We state that what? We state that economy, we say that what? Resources are owned by what? By private owners. So under this type of economy, this economy is one in which what? All productive resources, note it, all productive resources are what? Are publicly owned. It means this publicly owned, this simply means that governments are what? Are in the what? Center stage of what? Of controlling the what? These resources. And all decisions about the allocation of resources are taken by the what? By the central government. If the central government determines what? How the goods and services are allocated. What are the features of this type of economic system? The first one is that government determines what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. It means there are fundamental economic problems that are solved by what? By government, because government owns the factors of production. The second one is that there is no freedom of choice. Unlike under capitalist economic system, when we say there is a freedom of choice, you can buy what you want. In this case now, it is the government that will give you what they want, what they think you want. You don't just get what you want because you have resources. There is restrictions to what you can amass, the wealth you can amass under a socialist economic system, because government play a very major role in that kind of economic system. The third one is that function of government is prominent. This is what I said earlier. Government is very prominent in economic system. They play a major role, a prominent role in an economic system. That is why we say they are what? The function of government is prominent. Unlike under the what? Capitalism, in which what? There is a restriction to the what? To the activities of what? Of government. That is, the function of government is highly restricted. So the next one under socialist is that what? There is no efficient allocation of resources. If you know that you are going to be given food, either you work or not, then there is likelihood of you to be lazy. So that is what a phenomenon under a socialist economic system, because government provides for the citizens based on what is available in the country. Because government is an allocator of goods and services, then it's what? They can allocate, there is no efficiency in the allocation because of what? Because there will be a lazy people in that country that will not work, that will not contribute to the total growth of that economy. And at the same time, they will be what? Will be gaining from the economy. Which brings about inefficient allocation of the what? Of available scarce resources. Now the fourth one, or the fifth one I mean, is an example of countries that what? That practice this system are what? Are former Soviet Union, Bulgaria, Poland, Hungary, Romania, and China. All these countries are what? Are example of countries that practice what? A socialist economic system. So we need to know that at this point that a socialist economic system is highly different from a capitalist economic system, in such a way that a capitalist economic system is that economic system that what? That involves what? That involves price mechanisms determines what? The allocation of what? Of goods and services. But under a socialist economic system, the world government play a very prominent role in that economic system. Government determines what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce in that economic system. Therefore, it is different from from a capitalist economic system. And I've been able to give some of the features that distinguish these two economic systems. Now, we move to the third one. Now, we need to know that in a real sense of it, there is no pure capitalist, neither there is a pure socialist economic system. Why? Because there is no way, if you say a country is a capitalist system, which means that there is highly restriction of government intervention in economic activities, then there is no way you won't see government intervening. It's just that the proportion or the effect of government will not be prominent. That's under capitalism. Why in the other way around, under socialist economic system, you can't say a country is a pure socialist. I mean, that there is no intervention of individual in that economy. There will still be an element of individual intervention in an economy. So therefore, that brings us to the conclusion that there is no pure capitalist economic system and there is no pure socialist economic system. So what we can have now is an hybrid of socialist and capitalist economic system, and this hybrid is what we call a mixed economy. So what do we mean by a mixed economy? So if we say a mixed economy is a what? It is an economy that there exists a private and public ownership of productive resources. This is a what? This is a mixture of capitalist and socialist economic system. It means there is an hybrid of capitalist and socialist economic system in a mixed economy. Now, what are the features of a mixed economy? It combines what? It combines functions of government and price mechanisms. It means the function of government and the price mechanisms are combined. But it just the proportion of the combination of these functions is what varies among countries. Now, the countries that practice these systems are mostly the third world countries. Example is Nigeria, Gambia, and some other third world countries. So these are what economic system. Now let's do the functions of economic system. As I have determined what economic system the other time as the arrangement through which goods and services are allocated and distributed in an economy. Then, what could be the probable function of these arrangements of allocation of goods and services? What is the way which borders on what? The function of what? Of economic system. What is the function of economic system? Now, the function of economic system the first one is allocation of resources. The system of economy or economic system of a country will explain the way the resources of that economy will be allocated. What we are saying in essence is that it helps us in knowing how the resources in that country is allocated. For example, in a capitalist economic system, the way allocation of resources will be done will quite be different from the way to be done in socialist economic system. For in a capitalist economic system, we expect the allocation of the resources to be to be based on allocation of resources to be based on on the ability to pay. I mean, it's an economic system in which there is an efficiency of allocation of resources, which means that based on the amount you are having on you, that will determine the amount of goods that will be available at your disposal. But under a socialist economic system, we are seeing government providing everything for its citizens. Therefore, government will allocate in a socialist economic system. Why in a capitalist economic system, it is based on based on the need, your ability to pay. I mean, the force of demand and supply will surely help in allocation of resources. Now, the next one is organization of production. How is your production organized? How do you produce? Obviously, in a capitalist economic system, how do you produce? In a capitalist, you expect to use a capital-intensive method of production. Example of that is when you use machineries and some other capital-intensive techniques. While in a socialist, you're expecting labor-intensive. So, this organization of production should also differ between or among the economic system in that economy. And now, distribution of goods and services also will also vary. The economic system of a country will determine how the goods and services are being distributed. Now, the next one will go to the next function of the economic system is economic growth and development. Economic system of a country will also determine how that economy will be growing, what the growth and development pattern of that economy will look like. We will expect the capitalist economic system to have a rapid growth in the economy. An example is in US and UK, in which they use capital intensive method and the allocation of resources are efficient. But now that in socialist economy, we will expect a low or a gradual increase in the growth and development of that economy, because of the resources are not efficiently allocated in that economy. Why economic stability? So a function of economic system also will also state how stable the economy of that how stable the economics of that country is. So these are the different function of economic system. I mean, it helps in allocation of resources. I mean, the different economic system you adopt in our country will determine how your resources will be allocated, how there will be organization of production, how there will be distribution of goods and services, and the economic good and development. How will it be, and the stability of that economy. Let's go to the language of economics. Now, when we say language of economy, what do we mean? Sorry. What are the terms we need to acquaint ourselves with in economy? The first one is economy. When we say economy, what do we mean when we say economy? Economy simply means the word is used to mean a particular system of organization for the production, distribution, and consumption of all things people use to achieve a certain standard of living. So now, when we talk about economy, we talk about the mean a particular system. You use to express a particular system of organization for the work, for the production, distribution, and consumption of all things people use to achieve a certain standard of living. One will say resources. Resources are what? Every society or country has a what? Every society or country has a variety of things which are combined in numerous ways to produce goods. Such things called productive resources or simply resources are classified as this. Now, the stock of what? Of items or the stock of items that are used in producing goods and services in an economy is what we said to be what? The resources of that economy. I mean, the stock of what? The pile up of what? Of resources or the pile up of items that are used in what? In making goods and services in a country is said to be what? Is said to be a resources in that country. Now the resources of a country can be classified into three major parts. The first one is natural resources, the second one is human resources, while the third one is capital. Then we say natural resources, these are the natural endowments of that country. I mean, there's natural gifts of the country that are used in what? These natural gifts are used in producing goods and services. An example of this is what? Is land, water. These are natural gifts that can be used in producing goods and services. The second one is human resources. These are mental, physical abilities of human beings that reside in that country. Now, the mental skills of the human being residing in that country is also what? It's also what we need to. It's also one of the what? One of the resources of the country. The last one is capital resources. These are equipment. Example is equipment, road, machinery. These are what? Man-made. They are the system that what? They are made by what? By human being. Their resources are made by human beings. So these are what we call resources. So in a nutshell, resources are what we use in producing goods and services, and they are classified into three. The first one is what? Natural. The second one is human resources, while the third one is what? Is capital resources. Let's look at another term. This term simply means direct and inverse relationship. When we say direct and inverse relationship, what do we mean? Now, two variables are said to be directly related if they move in the same direction. If you are having two variables, x and y, and when you are seeing increase in x, and the increase in x is also leading to increase in y, then we are saying that these two variables are said to be what? To be directly related. It means they have a direct relationship. But when we say inverse relationship, it simply means that what? If you are having two variables x and y, and if x is increasing and y is decreasing, then we are saying we're having what? We're having indirect relationship. So in a nutshell, direct and inverse relationship, we are saying we're having indirect or inverse relationship. In a nutshell, we're having direct and inverse relationship. Sorry, two variables are said to be directly related if they move in the same direction. For example, the law of supply. I hope you know that when we say the law of supply, the higher the price, this is one variable, the higher the quantity supply, this is another variable. These two variables move in the same direction. They are directly related. Why the reverse is the case for inverse relationship? Example is law of demand. The law of demand says that the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. The two variables are inversely related. So that is what direct and inverse relationship. The next one is 4, which is stock and flow. When we say stock and flow concept, what do we mean? Economics, when we say a phenomenon has no time dimension, we say it is stock. Sorry. When a phenomenon is not having a time dimension, then that phenomenon is said to be a what? A stock. It means when a phenomenon is not what? Is not expressed in relation to time. Example is when we say wealth. Wealth is not always expressed in relation to time. Like we can't say my wealth in 2002 is my wealth per 2002. You know, it is not a term relating to what? To a term relating to time. Then that phenomenon that is not expressed in what? In using time dimension is what we call stock concept. On the other hand, if it has time dimension, we say it is a flow concept. Now, when we say a flow concept in economics, it simply means that concept is measured in relation to time. You know, there is a time dimension in relation to that concept. E.g., the quantity demand of commodity per period of time is flow. Is a flow concept. Now, the quantity demanded by a commodity, the quantity demand of a commodity per period of time. Maybe the quantity of rice demanded by Taiwo in 2009. You know, I'm able to express the quantity of my my demand of rice in what? per time. I mean, I'm able to stipulate the time frame during the period when I'm making that demand. That kind of concept in which we express it in relation to time is what we call it a flow concept. Now, away from that, let's go to the basic problems of what? Basic problem of what? Of economy. What are the basic problems of every economy? Every economy are faced with what? With problems. And these problems are what? Every economy, especially either capitalist or socialist or mixed, are always bedeviled or faced with what? With the same type of problem. It's just the way they approach to that problem. Their approach to that problem is what differs, but they are always faced with the same type of work. So these problems are: 1, what and how much to produce. That's the first problem. What and how much to produce, how to produce. The third one is for whom to produce, and the fourth one is what? How much of resources in use. Sorry. These are the major problems that every economy faces. Now, every economy faces the problem of what and how much to produce. I mean, what to produce is a very serious problem of every economy. Because of the limited resources of every economy, they tend to what? To make a decision, a very concrete decision as to what to produce in that economy. Let's say, for example, Nigeria. Or let's say, for example, Libya, where there is war, or a country where there is war, there is a prevalence of war. The president of that country or the leader of that country will be what? We want to trade off between two what? Production, either to produce food and food for the masses, or to produce what? Ammunitions for them. You know. Now, the limited resources they are having in that country will not be able to what? To go for the war, for the production of these two. I mean, ammunition and food. You know, they are in war. They need ammunition and they will need food at the same time. So therefore, that country will be faced with the production of what? If they produce food, they won't produce ammunition. If they produce ammunition, they won't produce food. So therefore, this is a problem that is always faced by every economy, either capitalist or what? Or socialist. So how to produce another problem that always faced by what? That is always faced by what? By every economy. What's the way to produce? How to produce? Do we need to use a capital intensive method of production or labor intensive method of production in our production? The economic system adopted by that country will stipulate the type of what? Will determine the type of what? The system of production to be used. I mean, how to produce. We can either produce using a what? A capital intensive technique or what? Or labor intensive technique. Now, we know that for an economic system that is a capitalist in nature, then we expect them to use what? A capital intensive technique, which explains what? The use of what? Machineries, modern machineries in the production of goods and services. But when a country is a socialist economy, then they what? They make use of what? Of labor intensive. Why? Because of what? They want to provide or cater for the masses, provide employment for everybody. I mean, by their government. Therefore, if they use capital intensive, then there won't be any provision of work or employment for their workforce. So therefore, they will need to employ labor intensive. So this they are able to solve the problem of how to produce. So the economic system adopted by every economy will determine the solution to the problem of how to produce in that economy, which is one of the fundamental problems of every economy. The next one is for whom to produce. Do we need to produce for the rich or the poor? Or we need to produce based on the amount of our need, or based on the amount of money we have on us. Now, if a country is exhibiting or is adopting a capitalist economic system, like the United States of America, they produce and what? They produce for those people that have the ability to what? Ability to buy. They produce for those people that have the ability to what? To buy. If you have your money, you buy what you want, anywhere in that country. That's an example of a typical capitalist economic system. But under a socialist economic system, they produce for what? For the masses. Masses they produce for because the government intervention in that country is high. The level of their intervention in that country is high. Therefore, they will need to produce for what? For their masses. So therefore, they need to solve the problem of for whom to produce in that economy and how much of resources to use. That's talking about the efficiency of utilization of the resources in that country. So how efficient are the country in the utilization of their resources? Now, for a capitalist economic system like UK, they what? They are seen to be efficient in the utilization of their resources because of what? Because forces of demand and supply determine the price and allocation of resources in that country, not human beings. It is forces of demand and supply. Therefore, there will not be room for what, for corruption or what, or inefficiencies in the capitalist economic system. But in a socialist economic system, there will be gross misconduct and what, an embezzlement of money and inefficiency in the utilization of available factor input. And when I say factor input, I talk about factor of production. So that is another way through which what basic problems are being solved by what, by the types of economic system that is being adopted by that country. So in a nutshell, to wrap it up, to recall what we have discussed under this section, we talked about the basic problem of any economy, and we said the economic system adopted by that country, either capitalist or socialist or mixed, will determine to large extent how the problems of our economy, how the major problem of every economy is being solved. The approach in which a capitalist economist will use in solving their problem will definitely be different from that of socialist economy. For capitalist economy, the what and how much to produce will be determined will be determined differently by what? The way it will be determined will quite be different from what? From that of what? Of socialists and so on. So basic problem of economic system can be solved, can be what? Any economy can be solved based on the what? Based on the type of economic system adopted in that country.